Zara looked me dead in the eye that night and said, "He's back, and I think we should just be friends." Then she packed up her things, from our life, from me, and went right back to her ex. I didn't scream. Didn't beg. Didn't do any of those movie scene grand gestures. I just said, "Alright." And that was it. Or at least, I thought it was. 3 months later, I opened my front door in the middle of a Montana winter, snow piled like cotton against my porch rail, and there she was. Zara. Shivering, mascara smudged, tears streaking down her cheeks like she had sprinted through every regret on her way to my house. Her dream project, the big documentary she left me for, completely collapsed. And now I guess she assumed I'd just still be here, waiting like some loyal character in the background of her movie. But let me back up. Zara and I were together for 2 years. 2 good years, or at least I thought so. We lived in Astoria, Oregon, this little coastal town where the air always smelled like salt and driftwood. She was a documentary filmmaker. That was her world: handheld cameras, unfinished scripts, pixels of raw humanity, and films that went viral about staying true to who you are. And me? I'm Eli. A senior infrastructure engineer for a renewable energy company. Solar fields, microgrids, clean energy, that whole universe. We were different galaxies somehow sharing the same sky. She used to tell me I gave her stability. I like to believe that. Maybe I needed to. We had plans. Real ones. We spent weekend mornings scrolling listings for cabins near Cannon Beach. She'd tap the screen and say, "That'll be my editing nook," and I'd imagine my future in her future, like it was the most natural thing in the world. Then Reed showed up. Reed, her ex. A former war photojournalist who had just come back from Afghanistan with a concept for a documentary series about climate change. It did sound interesting, I won't lie. When she first mentioned it, all I said was, "That sounds cool." That sentence? That was my first mistake, not because I trusted her, but because I didn't pay attention. I didn't hear the shift in her voice when she said Reed's name. I didn't see the spark I hadn't put there. Weeks passed. She started heading out before sunrise and coming home long after I'd washed the dishes. And she stopped asking about my work entirely. I'd try to tell her about the microgrid project I'd been designing for rural communities, something she used to lean into here, but now her eyes glazed over like I was reading out the terms and conditions of a software update. Then one night, during dinner, her phone lit up on the table. I saw the name before she flipped it over. Reed camera, new footage is insane. I swallowed a sting of something I didn't want to name and said, trying to be supportive, "I'm glad you're feeling inspired again." She stared at me like I'd insulted her. "You don't need to sound like my dad, Eli." I felt that hit somewhere deep, like she'd just cracked something I didn't even know was fragile. She went back to her laptop. I washed the dishes alone. The house felt so quiet I swear I could hear the ocean miles away. And that's when I knew, part of her was already gone. 2 weeks later, she came home late, her coat still half on, eyes fixed on the floor like she was reading a script she didn't want to perform. "Eli, we need to talk. You ever feel the temperature drop even when the heater's running?" That's exactly what it felt like. The air grew heavy, still. She sat on the couch, I took the chair across from her, and she said, "I think we should just be friends. You deserve someone who's as sure about this as you are." I nodded. "Okay." She blinked. Confused. Like she expected a fight. "That's it?" "Yeah. You already left. I'm just catching up." I walked to the key rack, slid her house key off my ring, set it on the table, grabbed my jacket, and left. No yelling. No slammed doors. Just the sound of my boots on the steps. Motel first. Friend's couch after that. I kept waiting for my phone to light up with some message, some call, some something. But nothing came. And here's the part one keep replaying in my head. When she said I deserved someone, what she meant was, she wanted the chaos. The spark. The wild adventure Reed represented. I was structure and spreadsheets and retirement account contributions. And yeah, maybe I wasn't exciting enough. But maybe I avoided a life where I was a placeholder until the next thrill walked back into her world. When I returned home 3 days later to get my things, she was gone. Completely moved out. The only thing she left behind was my house key on the counter and a note that said one word. "Sorry." She said she wanted to be friends. I said the same. Now I sit here wondering what I'm supposed to feel. Relief? Heartbreak? Anger? Mostly, I feel nothing. Just numb. So I keep asking myself, over and over, was I wrong for not fighting for us? Or was walking away the first right thing I've done in a long time? And just when I thought I might finally have an answer, that's when she showed up at my door again. Crying. Shaking. Saying everything had fallen apart. And I stood there wondering, why now, Zara? And what exactly do you expect from me? I won't lie, after Zara walked out of my life, the world just blurred. That first week, I moved through my days like someone had unplugged me from my own body. I'd go to work, sit through meetings, nod along like I knew what was happening, then drag myself back to my friend's couch and stare at my phone. Waiting. For a text. A call. Anything. It never came. And because apparently heartbreak turns your brain into a self-torture machine, I kept checking her social media. Every other post was about this once-in-a-lifetime documentary she was making with Reed. A carousel of buzzwords, authenticity, uncompromising truth, raw narrative expansion, that sounded deep if you didn't look directly at them. I looked. They meant nothing. Then, just when it felt like I was sinking into something I wasn't going to climb out of, everything shifted. My company called. They offered me a temporary 6-month relocation to Montana. A pilot project setting up microgrids for communities miles away from the nearest utility line. Normally, I would have said no, because life was in Oregon. Zara was in Oregon. But suddenly, there was nothing keeping me there. So I packed up what was still mine, got in my truck, and drove east. I crossed into Montana in early March. The sky was a sheet of gray steel, and the land felt so wide and empty it could swallow a person whole. It matched what I felt inside, like someone had cleared out everything and left silence in its place. The project was in Bitterroot Valley. My days were spent wrestling solar rigs into place, troubleshooting wind turbines that refused to cooperate, and working with contractors who measured trust by how well you could fix something with cold fingers and a headlamp. It was exactly what I needed. The physical work, the cold air biting through my jacket, the satisfaction of solving a problem you could actually see, it pulled me back into myself. On weekends, I hiked. Just me, the wind, and terrain scarred from old mining operations. I bought a cheap drone and filmed erosion patterns, thawing streams, slow-moving clouds. Somehow, watching the land heal itself made something in me start to heal too. I stopped posting online. Stopped wondering what Zara posted. Stopped trying to feel something I didn't. 2 months in, I started working closely with our field legal counsel, Naomi Brooks. We'd crossed paths years ago in Oregon, but never really talked. Naomi was, how do I put this? Brilliant. Intimidating in the exact way someone is when they don't need to prove they're smart. Dry humor so deadpan I missed at least half the jokes until she let the corner of her mouth twitch. That was her tell. We spent long hours at remote sites. And sometimes after work, we'd end up by a campfire. She'd bring a bottle of whiskey like it was standard field gear. We'd argue about environmental policy, the purpose of regulation, and what it meant to build something that outlasts you. She never asked what I was running from, but I think she knew. One night, when sparks from the fire floated into the dark sky, I admitted, a relationship ended badly. She didn't say sorry or offer pity. She just took a sip of whiskey and said, people leave when they realize you're not a supporting character in their story. You're the protagonist in your own. Simple. Direct. And it hit harder than anything Zara ever said. Meanwhile, back in Oregon, and everywhere online, Zara and Reed's big revolutionary documentary started to fracture. At first, everything looked shiny. Crowdfunding pushes. Drone shots. Most important work of our lives, captions. Then the tone shifted. Fewer posts. Longer rants about how authentic storytelling is punished by capitalist structures. People in the comments pushed back, gently at first. Someone said maybe the problem wasn't capitalism, but a lack of narrative focus. Zara responded like they'd insulted her family line. And then, just like that, a major sponsor backed out. Word spread fast in that community. People started whispering about budget problems and creative conflicts. I didn't feel happy about it. No vindication. Just a tired sort of course. That was inevitable. Reed had built a career being a lone wolf, not a collaborator. They were a fire that only burned things, not one you could build around. Around that same time, our Montana project came alive, literally. We brought power to a community that had relied on diesel generators for decades. The first night the system ran, lights came on in homes that had never known consistent electricity. Kids screamed. Some people cried. I'll never forget that. Local news picked it up. Then a regional sustainability group. Then a national outlet. Suddenly, the project wasn't just a pilot, it was a proof of concept. A grant came through to expand the program. Naomi was the one who told me. We were knee-deep in compliance forms when she turned her laptop so I could read the announcement. When I finished, she said, quietly, you built something that will outlast us. That matters. We started dating a week later. No drama. No grand declarations. We were inspecting a site when a storm rolled in. Rain hammered the truck roof. She looked at me and said, we should probably admit this stopped being just professional. I said, yeah, you're right. She leaned over, kissed me once, calm and certain, and that was it. No chaos. No need to chase each other through emotional minefields. We didn't post about it. We didn't need to. It was ours. I haven't heard from Zara since the day she left that note on my counter. I know she knows about Montana. Our professional circles overlap, so word gets around. I don't know how she feels about it, and I don't think I care anymore. Because here's what I've learned. You can't build a life with someone who's always sprinting toward the next thrill. Eventually, they run out of road. And when they turn around, all that's left is the wreckage they never stayed long enough to repair. Zara isn't a villain. She's just someone who can't sit still long enough to belong anywhere. I'm staying in Montana through the end of the year. Naomi is staying, too. We're building something real, something rooted, something that doesn't vanish the moment the horizon looks interesting again. And this time? I'm not leaving it behind. Montana changed everything. The project took off in a way none of us fully anticipated. We expanded our microgrid system to 3 more communities, and each one outperformed our projections. Word spread fast, first regional energy circles, then national organizations. Before long, our company was planning similar programs in other states. I kept waiting for it to feel unreal, but every time a family switched off their diesel generator and turned on a light powered by wind and sun, it grounded me again. Last month, Naomi and I presented our work at a sustainability conference in Denver. Packed room, standing attendance in the hallway, people asking thoughtful questions, taking notes like the words might help them build something, too. The applause at the end felt like a full-circle moment, proof that this thing we worked on wasn't just functional, it mattered. And personally, yeah, life felt good. Steady, maybe for the first time in years. Naomi and I moved into a small cabin outside Missoula. Big windows, quiet mornings, a wood stove that we feed like a temperamental pet. Plenty of space for both of us to work from home without stepping on each other's routines. We didn't make dramatic declarations or map out a 10-year plan. We just kept showing up for each other, every day, in a way that felt simple and right. I hadn't thought about Zara in months. I stopped checking her social accounts in July, and the world felt lighter when I did. Some doors don't need to be slammed shut, just locked, and walked away from. And then, 2 weeks ago, she showed up. I was at my field office, scribbling notes on system reports, when I heard a voice in the lobby ask whether Eli Mercer was available. I recognized it before I even stood up, familiar enough that my stomach tightened, unwelcome enough that I had to breathe through it. I walked out front, and there she was. Zara looked smaller somehow. Thinner. Dark circles smudged beneath makeup that wasn't doing its job. But she still carried that strange magnetic energy, like she could convince an entire room she was born to be a masterpiece. She gave me a soft, sad smile. "Hey." I forced myself to keep my voice even. "What are you doing here, Zara?" She launched into this explanation, something about filming a documentary on rural resilience and renewable energy, heard about the Montana project, wanted to include it. All the same buzzwords she always used: innovation, sustainability, authenticity. But if this were really professional, she wouldn't have just shown up at my door. She would have gone through PR, set up meetings, filed requests. She was here for me, not the work. So I told her she'd need to submit a formal request. She nodded, then asked if we could grab coffee and catch up. Against my better judgment, and I'll own that, I said yes. Before I left, I texted Naomi. She responded with a thumbs up and, "Let me know if you need backup." That's who she is. No jealousy. No suspicion. Just trust. We met at a coffee shop that was trying way too hard to be rustic. Exposed brick, Edison bulbs, pour over coffee that cost more than a tank of gas. Zara ordered something elaborate with oat milk and spices. I got a black coffee and sat across from her. We did small talk for a few minutes. It was awkward, like trying to wear a jacket that used to fit but doesn't anymore. Eventually, she went quiet. I could feel her gathering all the words she had been waiting to say. Finally, she looked at me and whispered, "You really meant it. You really let go." I told her, "You asked me to." She shook her head. Stared at the table. "I know, but I thought." She never finished the sentence, just sighed. "I thought you'd wait. I thought you'd fight for me. Or be angry. But you walked away like it was easy." My chest tightened, not from longing, but from remembering how hard it was. So I told her the truth. It wasn't easy. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done. But I'm not going to fight for someone who already decided I wasn't enough. I'm not begging someone to stay. That's when she broke. Quiet tears, slipping down her face, mascara clinging to the edge of her cheekbones. She told me Reed left. Hooked up with a producer in Denver and disappeared. She tried to finish the documentary alone, but it was falling apart. No funding. No direction. Months of her life and thousands of dollars gone because chaos couldn't hold anything together. "I chased excitement," she said, voice shaking, "and I lost the one stable thing I had." Part of me felt sorry for her. Another part felt angry. But mostly, I felt distant. Like I was watching a memory speak, not a person. "I'm sorry that happened," I told her, "but there's nothing I can do. You made your choice. I made mine." She asked if I was seeing anyone. "Yes." "Is it serious?" "Yeah, it is." She nodded, wiped her eyes, and said she deserved that outcome. Maybe she did. Maybe she didn't. But it wasn't mine to figure out anymore. We said goodbye in the parking lot. She left first. I sat in my truck for a long moment, just breathing. Then I called Naomi. She listened, then asked, "How do you feel?" And the strangest part? I told her the truth. "Honestly, I feel okay." I thought that would be the end of it. But later that night, Naomi heard a car engine idling outside the cabin. She peeked through the window, and there was Zara, sitting in her car, staring at our home like she was standing outside a version of her life she'd never get back. Naomi didn't hesitate. Grabbed a jacket and went out into the cold. Zara claimed she was waiting for a ride because her car broke down, but Naomi didn't buy it. Still, she invited her inside because it was freezing, and cruelty has never been in her nature. They sat at our kitchen table, two women who should never have needed to meet. Zara looked at everything. The wood stove, the shelves, the scattered case files and engineering reports. Finally, she said, "You two really work, don't you? Like you actually understand each other." Naomi didn't flinch. "Yes, we do." Zara gave this sad little laugh. "Eli used to look at me like I was the most fascinating person alive. I loved that. Loved feeling mysterious. Special." Naomi's reply was a whisper and a knife. "That sounds exhausting." Zara let out a humorless laugh. "Yeah. Turns out mysterious is just inconsistent. And special is just self-centered." She stood, said Naomi was lucky. Naomi answered, "I know. That's why I'm with him." Zara left. I blocked her the next morning, not out of spite, but because closure sometimes requires locked doors. Here's what I know now. Some people love the idea of you, the way you stabilize them, the way you see their potential, the way you hold them together. But they never learn who you actually are. Never ask. Never stay long enough to. Zara loved the version of me who existed to make her dreams easier to reach. Not the real me, the engineer who wants to build microgrids and argue about policy under starlight with someone who doesn't confuse chaos for depth. Naomi sees me, challenges me, supports me, makes me laugh. Doesn't need me to be a character in her story, just myself. That's partnership. That's enough. I think this is where I stop telling this story. Not because it ends here, but because the rest of it belongs to my life, not my past. I'm moving forward. And this time, I'm not looking back. It's been almost 3 months since Zara showed up in Montana, and honestly, it feels like a lifetime has passed. Enough has changed that it feels only right to close this story for good. The Montana microgrid program wrapped in December. Every milestone? Hit. Most of them? Surpassed. The test communities reported higher reliability than projected, and the data looked so strong that the company decided to scale the model to 6 more states. People in leadership started saying words like federal funding and national rollout like it wasn't the wildest thing I'd ever heard. Then they promoted me, to lead a new division for rural renewable infrastructure. More responsibility, more travel, yes, but the work? Exactly what I've spent my career wanting to do. I didn't feel like I was running from anything anymore. I was running towards something I believed in. At the start of January, Naomi and I moved back to the Oregon coast. We found a house near Yaquina Head Lighthouse, a place where storms roll in like living things and the wind sings against the cliffs at night. It's close enough to the main office, but remote enough that we can hear our own thoughts. We're not rushing anything. No engagement countdowns, no wedding planners hidden in desk drawers. Just 2 people living side by side, building a life without needing to make an announcement every time it grows. We rarely post on social media. When we do, it's work-related, or a landscape shot, or just something we want to remember someday. Quiet, simple. Ours. The photo. Last week, Naomi snapped a picture of me at dawn. I was out on a coastal bluff repairing a wind sensor on one of the older turbines. I didn't even notice her taking it. I was too focused on the equipment, the salt wind, the first light hitting the ocean. When she showed it to me later, the entire sky was soaked in orange and gold. Me on a ladder, harness secured, ocean behind me. A version of my life I never imagined I'd have, but somehow ended up living. She posted it with one caption. Patience is a form of faith. No explanation. No tag. Just that. At first, it got the usual reactions, coworkers surprised I was awake at sunrise, friends asking about the turbine model, a few people saying it looked like a postcard, the normal stuff. And then I saw it. A like, from Zara. At first, I didn't recognize the picture. New profile. New name. But it was her. And just as quickly as the notification appeared, it disappeared. She unliked it, maybe by accident, maybe deliberately, maybe in a moment of whatever she was feeling. I checked her page, not out of longing, but curiosity. There was almost nothing left. No posts. No reels. No links. No followers. Just a name and a tiny, blank bio that read, filmmaker. And a few hours later, the account was gone. Not deactivated. Deleted. Like she erased the life she used to perform online. Naomi noticed too. She raised an eyebrow and said, "That's intense." I shrugged. What was there to say? Zara had looked directly into a window of the life she didn't choose, saw that I wasn't just surviving, I was happy, and maybe that was more than she could hold. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel angry. I felt sad for her. Truly. Zara isn't cruel. She isn't heartless. She's just someone who kept chasing the kind of chaos she thought meant she was alive, until it consumed everything she built. The cliff trail. A few evenings later, Naomi and I were hiking the coastal trail, fog rolling in low across the cliffs, turbines humming steadily behind us like a heartbeat made of steel and wind. I paused, staring at the water. Naomi slipped her hand into mine and waited. I told her, "You can't save someone from the storms they go looking for. Some people keep choosing chaos because it feels like freedom, but eventually it eats them alive." Naomi squeezed my hand and said something I'll never forget. "No, you can't save them. But you can build something that outlasts the storms." And standing there, listening to the turbine spin and the surf crash below, I realized that was exactly what I've been doing, maybe without even knowing it. I've been building systems that outlive crises. Building work that matters even when no one's filming it. Building a relationship based not on chaos, but on showing up, on the boring days, the quiet days, the days with no dramatic soundtrack. What I know now. I don't hate Zara. I don't resent her. I genuinely hope she finds whatever she's searching for. I hope she learns that stillness isn't the enemy of creativity, and that excitement is not the same thing as meaning. But her journey is no longer my responsibility. Some people only fall in love with the idea of you, the comfort you give them, the steadiness you bring, the way you make them feel like they're the star of their own story. But they never actually see you. Zara loved the version of me that held her world together so she could chase the next spark. Naomi loves the version of me that exists when no one else is watching. That's the difference. And it's enough. So here it is. The ending. I learned that walking away without screaming is still strength. I learned that dignity is not the same thing as giving up. I learned that a real partner doesn't need you to be their audience, just their equal. My life now is simple. A partner who sees me. Turbines humming at dusk. Clean energy powering people who need it. A future I am actually building, not waiting for. Zara made her choices. I made mine. We're both living with what came after. And for the first time in a long time, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be.